Let me go to Heath's list. Brandon Cooks. Are you sure about this? Because he really hasn't been that good.
That's kind of the reason we're buying low on him.
Yeah, yes. But it wasn't really that good last year.
He was like number 2 wide receiver last year.
Yeah, the number 2. Am I really buying low on like wide receiver 23?
What was it with Davis Mills toward the end of last season?
Good, very good.
Okay. Yeah, those days. That's what we're hoping reveals itself moving forward.
Well, I just, Heath, for a guy, I know the stats that you look at. I mean, all of his rate stats are terrible. Career low yards per target, lowest yards per catch since his rookie season, ADOT way down,
but why?
And catch rate way down. I don't know.
Right. And then the catch rate is creeping back up. I think it's 57% now. It was below 50% at one point. But he's still getting more than 8 targets per game. For a guy who's never been below 7.7 yards per target, never been below 10 yards per catch, I think the rate stats will improve, especially considering it's the same quarterback that he was better with last year. Davis Mills hasn't taken a step forward, but he also, I would have a hard time believing he's just gotten worse in his second year.
26% target share.
Yes, but 6 to 7 targets in 3 straight games. And what does that coincide with? Dameon Pierce
stepping up.
I don't know that they're going to be competitive, as they won last week, and they have been pretty competitive this year.
Mm-hmm.
But they're trying to become more of a rushing team.
Well, they've also played one good team this year.
Jaguars, the future division winners.
The Chargers,
yeah. Chargers aren't really that good. All right.
Well, coming out of the bye, they've got the Raiders, the Titans, then Philadelphia. That'll be tough. The Giants, that could be tough. Commanders, Dolphins, Browns, Cowboys. I think they've got mostly favorable matchups, or at least situations where Cooks will continue to see a good target share.
I mean, he's an underachieving player in a bye week right now. There's no better time to buy low on Brandon Cooks.
Agreed.
You have J.K. Dobbins and Chris Goblin on your buy low list, and I just wonder about health because they both were limited last week, seemingly because of health.
Right. Yeah, their recovery has taken longer than I had hoped, but they are both still elite players, and I don't believe their recovery is going to take the entirety of the season. Kind of like DeAndre Swift with what Dave said. Like, if you drafted these guys, you're probably not having a very good time. I do think in the second half of the season, they both have top 12 upside at their position. They could both be league winners. And so guys that have been bad and not even full-time players right now that maybe could be top 12 guys in the second half are the types of guys I'd like to target.
Godwin is definitely one of those guys. I'm worried about Dobbins because he played fewer snaps in week 5 than he did in week 4. And Harbaugh said after the game that the reason why Dobbins didn't play more is because they were managing his reps. And Gus Edwards is going to come back soon, apparently. And we saw it. We saw this in 2020, where Dobbins and Gus split the rushing work. Dobbins needed touchdowns to really be effective for fantasy purposes. His ceiling was never truly met then. And now he doesn't look quite the same to me. He doesn't look like he's got that same acceleration that he had before.
I mean, like we heard from Jason La Canfora, that might not come until the second half of the season. But I will say, like what you said about his snaps is exactly what happened to Chris Godwin. He played 53 snaps, 83% in week 4. Last week against the Falcons, it fell to 52%.
That's right. But I do think Godwin's snaps could whipsaw really quickly, and he goes back to being an every down player. I don't think Dobbins will ever be a 70% of snaps player for Baltimore.
No, I don't think he will be either. I don't think he needs to be a top 12 running back.
Okay, so Heath's buy lows were Zach Wilson in a 2QB league, Jets passing game in general because they're dirt cheap, Brandon Cooks, J.K. Dobbins, Aaron Jones, and Chris Godwin. Dave, your buy lows, DeAndre Swift we already talked about, Joe Mixon. You got 2 wide receivers on this list, Michael Pittman and Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's next 3 matchups, Dave, are against teams that rank 1, 3, and 2 against wide receivers. He already faced number 1, and he scored 2 touchdowns and had 70 yards. That was against the Colts week 2.
Yep.
The others are the Giants and the Broncos, and quite frankly, I just don't think the Giants are really the third best team against wide receivers. The Broncos I could certainly buy. But anyway, Kirk and Pittman, who do you like better, and what do you expect from them rest of the season?
I like Pittman better. I think Pittman will see his target share I don't know if the target share necessarily skyrockets, but now that Alec Pierce has kind of established himself, defenses are going to have to take attention to that, or give attention to that, I should say. And I think Pittman becomes a good PPR receiver. Maybe not top 10. You might have drafted him a little bit too early. We were pretty excited, but top 20, somewhere in that range. So I don't mind trying to get Pittman on the cheap right now. And that's how I feel about Pittman.
Okay. And for sell highs now, let's go quick, guys. Heath, your sell highs: Gabe Davis in PPR, Taysom Hill, Debo, who you talked about, Raheem Mostert, and Zach Ertz, who we already talked about. So the three we haven't discussed are Gabe Davis in PPR, Taysom Hill, and Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, if anybody thinks what happened last week changes who Gabe Davis is, then you should take advantage of that. Just as if anybody thought what happened the 2 weeks prior changed who Gabe Davis was, you should have taken advantage of that. He is a 6 target per game guy who could give you 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, or can give you 13 yards. And that's going to be the balance. In non-PPR, I wouldn't be as interested because the upside is so good. I love that. That's a fantastic chart. And you can see the arrows pointing up. So I'm not sure why anyone would want to trade him, because he's obviously trending in the right direction. But I would expect that it's going to look like a heart rate chart this season. Not that I'm not giving him away, but there were people who thought he could be a top 20 wide receiver this season, and maybe he'll pull it off, but I don't expect that in PPR.
We've seen plenty of receivers be up and down the heart rate chart and finish as a top 20 receiver. So it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes a top 20 receiver. But I think you're right about the targets. I think you're right that he will have some weeks where you're just left going, what happened? What happened to Gabe Davis? Anybody see Gabe Davis? But he just doesn't get the type of volume and certainly the type of big plays. He's a big play waiting to happen. I would venture to say that he's one of Josh Allen's check down guys, and that when a play breaks down, maybe his first read is Diggs, or there's pressure on him, he just looks deep. He moves out of the pocket, looks deep, chucks it to Gabe Davis. Davis makes a play. I wouldn't trade him yet. I wouldn't sell high on him yet. He's got the game against Kansas City coming up in week 6. I'd wait till after that game to move on to Gabe Davis.
Through. I completely agree. I mean, if you just saw how poorly they defended the deep ball against the Raiders, 2 deep passes to Adams, 2 pass interferences drawn by Adams. This looks like it could be great for Gabe Davis, but if he doesn't come through, then he's going into his bye. I mean, like, what are you going to get for him? So, would you trade Gabe Davis for Michael Pittman and Christian Kirk?
Both those guys, absolutely. Oh, you mean straight up
separately
for each one? I think I'd wait a week.
I'd rather have Kirk and Pittman.
Okay. And then
I think I'd wait a week and see if I can make a run at Jamar Chase.
Gabe Davis. Okay.
Not straight up. Hold on, not straight up Davis or Chase. You throw something.
I understand.
Davis. Okay, thank you.
What would you try to trade Taysom Hill for, Heath?
Any starter at any position.
Okay. Honestly, that's fine. Raheem Mostert.
Any starter at any position?
Just think he's going to get hurt?
I don't know that he's going to get hurt. I don't think that this is going to be a team that has great success running the ball or runs the ball a lot once they have all of their players healthy. And he's a 30-year-old running back who's never played a full season as a starting running back.
Mostert or Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
I think I'll take Mostert. What about you, Dave?
Well, do you have Garrett Wilson on any teams? And maybe I could trade you a Raheem Mostert.
I think if I needed a running back, I would accept that trade. It really comes down to how badly you need a running back. I think that weighs Mostert a little bit more.
Jeez, his schedule is amazing.
Minnesota, got to be there for it.
Detroit and Chicago,
yeah,
and then Cleveland. Right, Dave, you're selling high. Question marks on Jeff Wilson and Tyler Lockett.
The question mark on Wilson is because we know that Elijah Mitchell is going to come back at some point, and that theoretically means a split. I don't think Wilson has played so well that he's going to force Mitchell to the bench, and I don't think he's played so poorly that Mitchell's just going to come right back in and be the dominant running back in San Francisco. I bet they share. So I'm wondering if you move off of Jeff Wilson, and maybe you wait a week on him too because he's playing Atlanta, that you go ahead and pull off something like that. You try and set the blueprint or the groundwork now for a Jeff Wilson trade, and you make it after this week And this is assuming that you've got running backs to make a move on. Lockett, the question is, can he keep this up? He's always been such a boomer bust. Like when I was talking about receivers that finished top 20, but they've been great one week and crappy the next, he was the second receiver I thought of. Brandon Cooks was the first, for what it's worth. Can he stay 15 PPR points a week with Geno Smith the rest of the season? Can that really happen? I'm not sure if it can. And I know that his value is sky high right now. So I wouldn't be opposed to selling high on Tyler Lockett.
He's been much better, obviously. But do you think his value is as high as Gabe Davis's?
I think it's higher than Gabe Davis's.
I don't think you could. That might be a good Twitter poll.
I don't think it is because of preseason hype, because people loved Gabe Davis. Now they've got a reason to buy back in. I don't know that if the season, if we didn't know anything preseason, whatever, that'd be one thing. But just based on where Gabe Davis was compared to Tyler Lockett, I'm not sure the gap has closed that much just on the general public. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Seattle is they've just been so hyper efficient. Geno Smith has 9 touchdown passes. 5 of them are from 20 or more yards out. He has 4 pass attempts inside the 10-yard line. And it's just not really that sustainable of a way to score. Now, Lockett does have a history of long touchdowns. Don't get me wrong, but you can't just rely on that. However, like I said last week, I mean, I love the fact that Geno Smith is throwing more than half of his passes to Metcalf and Lockett.